from Yosef Bosch. I've made no secret my appreciation for this teacher's subreddit. It's great to peek in on liberal white women dealing with the ramifications of the diversity that they love and demand. Here's a particularly wonderful slice of life. From r/teachers. Issues remembering/pronouncing names, and it's now caused 2 traumatizing experiences. I recently moved from Vermont and started working at a Title I school in downtown Baltimore. My goodness, I am seeing names I can barely pronounce. My students are all Americans from American families, but their names are unbelievably complex and foreign. One of my students is named Ashadi. I keep pronouncing it Ashadi, and she shouts back, "It's Ashei." There's a T in the name. Anyway. Yesterday, I got it wrong again, and she threw a tantrum and called me a racial slur that rhymes with bike. I'm not going to comment. She stormed out of my room. This isn't even the worst. A young man got in my face like he was going to beat me. His nostrils widened, and his face was enraged, and he kept saying, "Say Day Sean Dane again!" I want to quit. I took the job because the pay and benefits look great, and Cal Ripken is my childhood hero, but it has been a huge mistake. I hate the city, I hate my school, I want to quit, but these kids need a good teacher. You should be worried that students can't read or write, or communicate freely. I started a new job teaching English at a public high school. I'm in a tough spot because I started in the middle of the year and I've never taught this level or material before. I have 2 regular classes and 1 honors class, which are as different as night and day. Half my students in the regular class are failing. I know from reading their quizzes that in one of my classes of 28, only 5 students actually read Fahrenheit 451, even though they had tons of class time to get it done. I like Fahrenheit 451. I was excited to have my own classroom, but I'm not allowed to put any books on my shelves because all reading material has to be vetted by some contrived board of specialists first. I don't even know. This is just what the substitute teacher I replaced said. Lack of school books is a huge issue. We are required to teach this online standardized curriculum that the school district bought this year, but it's bullshit. Every unit has excerpts of novels, and kids are supposed to read that instead of the novels in their totality. And then they take these online quizzes and programs, and the program stores their data. So the Roald Dahl type rewriting probably gets fed into this type curriculum for smooth repackaging. We can get around teaching the online program a little bit if we want, because we are allowed to teach 1 IRL full-length book per unit. But it can only be a book the program lists, and we have to use that program's required pacing. And as a result, all English teachers at the same grade level are teaching the same book at the same time, which is a problem because I have almost 28 students in 9th grade, and there's only 11 copies of Mice and Men left to go around. I have 50 10th graders, and there's no copies of The Alchemist left. So if I want to teach them a novel in English class, I have to send them a PDF of the novel I found on the internet. I have a few kids who can't speak English, and I ended up buying translated copies of their book in Spanish and Korean. No idea if this is even allowed, but they have single-digit percentages as grades, and I just want them reading. There are a lot of special needs kids, too. So for my non-honors sections, I have a special ed co-teacher in the room. My co-teacher was sick this week, so I had a sub. My better section of the 2 non-honors classes had a discussion on the censorship in Fahrenheit 451, where we talked about how there are no books in the classroom, how their Chromebooks they're on all day are tracking what they search, how they have AirPods in all day, how their online hall pass system is telling some sort of Taylorism on them and times and counts their bathroom visits, and I have mentioned our Aaron Schwartz's story as an example of copyrights enforcing censorship. And then the substitute came to me after class and told me that I should watch what I say in case they're recording me. Another big problem is phones. If you tell these students they can't have their phones out because they need to try and participate or read, they get incredibly angry. Not just the eye-rolling expected of teens, but they start shaking and will try to leave the room. One girl flipped out and didn't come back. I just want them to read and get better at writing, but all of this has gotten me so worked up that even posting this is scary. From another commenter. I teach high school. The majority of students, even honor students, are genuinely illiterate. And I don't mean, lol, they're stupid. I mean, they cannot read and write beyond a 3rd grade level. And I have honor students, among other problems. We are so fucked. Genuine question. How are they honor students if they can't read or write in an appropriate grade level? Severely drop standards. If you are above the age of 20, you would be shocked to... Oh, okay. Severely drop standards. If you are above the age of 20, you would be shocked to see the level of rigor in American schools. The expectations upon kids in modern honors classes are lesser than those put upon kids in non-level classes only a decade ago. 100%. It's also much more common than you'd think in universities, at least from my undergrad experience. A ton of group work to ensure the worst students get pushed through, repeatedly extending due dates, lowering standards to whatever they need to be to pass everyone, regardless of how low that is. It was an eye-opening experience for me to be in groups with people who had barely an idea of what this class was about, but then would mention their 3.0 GPAs. I teach English/Writing Foundation courses, 101, 102, etc. at a community college, and the issues you note have been the subject of a lot of quiet conversations amongst my colleagues. The most fundamental skills necessary for the intellectual growth and critical thinking are critical reading and discussion skills, and these have been on the downturn for 10 years. That was a wrong sentence, but anyway. These COVID-addled teenagers in public school curriculums produce freshman college students with 6th grade reading levels who walk around like zombies, purposeless and hopeless, staggering from one room to the next without any idea what they are doing, what they should be doing, and why they are not and cannot do the simplest of tasks. Speaking with other instructors, we are hitting a point where we simply don't know how to work with some of these students because of the huge deficit in basic reading and writing skills and discrepancies between students who do have them create a classroom impossible to maintain. Competent students bored, incompetent students lost. Sadly, I must tell you that if we were to move on to college and university, the phone issues will not change. You must understand that you are teaching addicts, not students. Between the hand-holding, passive abuse of high school instruction, the absence of any household or parental support for learning, and the general consumerist restructuring of education, these past few semesters have produced some of the worst students I have ever taught. Welcome to the suck. If people enter college with 6th grade capabilities, COVID wasn't the problem. I sympathize, though. What's even worse are the trauma and mental health-based excuses that some of the students are pulling to get out of reading. My partner is an educator, and there was a recent discussion of this in a teacher's group she's in. Students are refusing to read books such as 1984 because of the supposed discomfort with the sexual content. One teacher alleged that they had students refusing to read Macbeth because the witches were too creepy. Mental health-based malingering and learning disabilities are used like special Magic the Gathering cards that they can play and get them privileges and enable them to game the system to get ahead, and students are fully aware of that and exploiting it. Barry Weiss just had a podcast about how 65% of 4th graders can't read. COVID really exposed that the way students are being taught to read at a young age is totally and utterly failing. Basically, instead of teaching kids how to sound out words and using the roots to understand the meanings, teachers are telling kids to use context to essentially guess what words mean based on sentence or even pictures. Imagine asking 1st graders, what do you think goes here? What sounds right? What makes sense? What do the pictures tell you? They have no idea. And then they get frustrated and then give up. And for the last 10 years, parents just basically went, well, some kids aren't average readers, and my kid's one of them. When in actuality, they can't read at all. They never learned the fundamentals to begin with. I'm glad I was homeschooled K through 3rd grade. It may have stunted me socially, but hey, at least I had hooked on phonics. My mom was an English teacher for 10 years before she had me. As an adult, I'm so grateful she was obsessed with teaching me phonics. Well, I might be able to read, but I can't speak. Air traffic control made my student cry. Title pretty much sums it up. I'm at a busy class, Charlie with taxi routes that can be 5 to 6 steps long, with multiple runway crossings, etc. I try to let my students do as much radio work as possible, and she was good, so I sent her on solo cross-country. She gets the first taxi readback wrong. Controller immediately gets frustrated. Student finally gets it after being berated and reads it back. She ends up turning left instead of right at one point, and then just asks to taxi back to the FBO after Tower said, "You're killing me," and asking if there's an instructor on board after she had stated that she's a student solo. My student had at one point asked for a progressive taxi, and the grounds said, "Just listen to me," in the most condescending voice possible. She hasn't scheduled another flight. She had admitted to me she doesn't know if she will. I understand the air traffic control has an extremely important job of keeping everyone safe, but man, up until now, her comms have been stellar, so I'm just so mad. They called my chief about her, and we had to debrief due to ground calling him. She left sobbing heavily, and I hope she keeps flying. I feel like I failed this poor kid. She had soloed before, no problem at all. Edit Tad, she did not cry in the air. She calmly taxied back, and then cried when our chief pilot asked her what happened, as they received a call about her. For those of you saying she's too emotional to be a pilot, fuck off. Don't act like you were God's gift to aviation and didn't get overwhelmed when you first started. So she cried. Who gives a pilot? Well... Question. Who was the most beautiful of all Greek philosophers? Well, I went to a Greek food takeout place once, and the lady at the counter had huge jugs, and she was gorgeous, very dark Mediterranean looking, and huge jugs, biggest jugs I've ever seen. And she said, "What do you want?" Which is kind of a philosophical question, so I vote for jugs. My 16-year-old niece has zero knowledge about any historical events. I showed her Schindler's List, and it didn't impact her at all. Any hard-hitting movie suggestions? After finishing the movie, all she said was that it was too long and boring. My wife and I had to explain every scene to her, and after the movie, I asked her the following questions. Question. About how many Jews were killed during the Holocaust? I don't know, 1,000? No, okay, 200 million? Who won the war? Italy? Or Spain? Seriously, what should I do to make this kid care somewhat about major historical events? I don't know what to do anymore. Her absolute ignorance is killing me. I hate my students, and can't even look them in the face without feeling revulsion and disgust. It's a specific grade level. The others are mostly fine. A group of extremely racist kids continue in school while the victim of their bullying had to leave because of what they did to him. The kids are rich, entitled, bored all the time, and completely uninterested in learning anything new. Not only are they cruel and ignorant in the extreme, but they celebrate it. They celebrate their own ignorance, and how unpleasant it makes a school day for every other kid in the room. It's disgusting. School won't do fuck all because of bottom line, lol. I spent the last 6 months being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about how I could bake diversity into the curriculum and slowly but gently make some changes through open discourse, etc. Can't pull together the will to even try anymore. As the only openly gay teacher in school, I am used to them being assholes about it in front of me, but last week I heard about them bullying a kid about it, and I just couldn't stop seeing red. I'm so angry it's scaring me. I don't know what to do. I had some stupid California